1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just bring it a bit lower. Yeah, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, just bring it a bit lower.
How's that sounding in your ears, Peter?
That sounds good. How does... Just give us the signal.
Friday night, round number 10 of the NPL Victoria season. Great to be with you on a very still night here from Port Melbourne at JL Murphy Reserve. It's a nice cool night as we've hit daylight savings. It's getting darker quicker, obviously, as a result. And we are here to watch some football this evening between two sides who would like to get back on the winners list. It's been a bit dire in terms of three-pointers in the last month or so for both of these teams. For Port Melbourne, they are bringing up the rear in the NPL Victoria standings right now, sitting last on the table. But they did get a win 2 weeks ago at this venue against the Preston Lions, a 3-2 win in dramatic circumstances, but come in off the back of a heavy defeat last week away at Dandenong Thunder. While for Hume City, the visiting side tonight, they started the season really well, but they've only got 1 point to show from their last 4 games. They have come up against a number of the league heavyweights in that run of games. The draw opens up for them, though, in the next month ahead. So there are points on offer for Hume, who are sitting right on the fringe of the top 6, just outside on goal difference. A pleasure to welcome you in this evening to our coverage of this encounter. Jordan Canellis with you, and alongside me for our analysis of the evening is Peter Paleologos. Hello, Peter. How are you?
Very well, and good to see you, and a good night. Very good night for football. Looking forward to this match. I'd call it a stepping stone match in terms of a narrative. You mentioned Hume just outside the 6. This could be a launching pad for them. And also Port are last, but the difference between the relegation spots and even 7th spot where Hume is about 5-6 points. So Port, a good result tonight, just like they did against Preston, could open up things and momentum for them.
Absolutely. Let's have a look at these starting 11s for these sides. There's been a couple of changes through both teams, and some big names are missing for both of these teams tonight. Starting off with the home side, Port Melbourne, who make 4 changes from last week's team. Out goes Jonathan Vikurtis, Amanon Karmas from their defence. Josh Markovski has been relegated to the bench tonight, and the captain, Nick Dibb, is out. The skipper and the man who is maybe leading the goal of the year contention after his wonder strike a few weeks ago, as we are underway here from JL Murphy Reserve, with Hume City kicking us off, going to the left of your screens in the first half in the white kits. So the 4 inclusions then is young Oliver Yankolovsky comes in defence, as does Nathan Dibb, the brother of. They also have, I just lost myself on the page here, Alec Bechfanovsky is in, and Delano Farrow, who's back fully fit now and ready to start in the starting 11 for Port. They are the 4 inclusions. While for Hume City, they are also without a big name in Lloyd Isgrove, who is not in the squad tonight. He's out. Michael Domfe goes out onto the bench, and so does Lazarus as well. He's been demoted to the bench. The ins, Oliver Kellart comes onto a wing. Dennis Yildiz returns into defence, and Robert Harker from England, we see his inclusions. So while one Briton goes out in Lloyd Isgrove, we get to see Robert Harker for the first time for us here, Peter, for his second appearance at NPL level. Yes,
Isgrove probably a big blow for Hume. 3 goals, leading goal scorer this year. But also you mentioned Farrow for Port Melbourne. Good to see him back. He scored 2 for Port Melbourne this year. And look, Harker.
There's an attack here from Russell down the right. Brought down in the box, but referee Puya Gadirian waves it away.
Yeah, I was talking to the referee in the rooms a little bit before the match and didn't realise he was that young, 24, and very established presence, and looking for a big game today. Very up-and-coming referee, and we have to support our referees. No doubt about that.
So kick out here for Luka Romic, the goalkeeper for Port Melbourne. It'll be interesting to see who controls midfield then for these two sides, with the playmaking abilities of Isgrove for Hume and Nick Dibb for Port Melbourne, both absent tonight. A bit of wind picking up around JL Murphy Reserve. Hoodies have gone on right around the venue. Throw in here for Hume. Here's Russell, who pings it out towards Usal, who's playing on the left to start this match tonight. Flicks it in, looking for the run in behind, and this shot that came in from Oliver Kellart was scooped up and over.
Yeah, I was just looking at Usal. He's all by himself, really wide, opening up a lot of space. It looks like Port with the 3 back and the 2 at the moment, 3-2 in front. So they're not actually playing with the back 4, although now they've just rearranged 4-3. maybe 1 and 2. Just trying to get there the way they've set up. But yeah, too much space for Usal at that instance, I think.
Heavy defeats for both teams last week. 5-1 loss for Port Melbourne away at Dandenong Thunder, and a 3-0 loss for Hume City at home at Broadmeadows. They've lost their last 2 games by an aggregate of 5-0 against Oakley and Avondale, who are leading the league, so you can maybe pardon that for Hume, although you don't want to lose by that much. It's never good. Doesn't matter where you are on the table, but I suppose if you're going to lose matches, you don't want to lose to the teams around you, as opposed to the team sitting right at the top. Here's Riyad Muyetz in defence for Port Melbourne. He's got Daniel Serra to his right. Pretty versatile fullback. Serra can play left or right. Heavy challenge in midfield. Let go. The challenge was made by Aidan Ishak. Here goes Usal down the left. He's got Kellart again to his inside. He's just held up. Here is Kellart. Has to run across the top of the box. Steered out to Dennis Yildiz. Now Usal. It's over all comers. Picked up by Ford. Gets it back forward. It's good defending from Dib. Here's Kilda. Back to Joseph Ford again. Sends it up a long way. Usal caught unaware. Here comes the following shot, and there should have been and was a deflection. Corner kick for Hume City.
I was just watching that. Sarah's giving a lot of space on the left-hand side here for Hume, and I think he needs to tighten up that a little bit, because that's twice that Usal's gone forward. But it's a big game for Burka Kerdar. I would say he's the player, he's the key ex-Melbourne victory. We know what he can do. Maybe the second division is the kind of player that can reinvent himself, and this is someone that Hume needs in order to step up into the top 6, someone to really take control of the game.
I'm curious to see where he eventually settles in this team, whether he plays as an advanced midfielder, whether he plays as a more holding player. We have a hold up here for an injury early on.
I mean, he's quite versatile. I mean, if you remember the Melbourne victory, his ability was 17, and he was able to orchestrate quite a few moves. But then he can play, as you said, Jordan, further up, and also maybe as a false 9. So he's got quite a few of those abilities. It's about, I suppose, confidence and taking control of the game.
Injury concern there for Robert Harker, who's just holding his left flank as you see him coming off. Corner kick to be taken. Birkin Kerdar will take it for Hume. In swinging right footer coming up. Unless he goes short, he does have the short option. Goes right into the mixer instead, puts it on top of the goalkeeper, and then floats past and hooked away by Nathan Dibb. The early questions being asked by Hume City, who will look to get right on top early on in this encounter, as most teams against Port Melbourne have done this season. It's not trying to disrespect Port Melbourne, it just has been the reality of their season so far. Planted in last on the NPL Victoria table after the first 9 weeks of the season.
Yeah, 23 goals I think they've conceded this year.
Correct.
Port, so really got to tighten that up, especially as Hume have got some firepower out there.
Yeah, it's five worse off than the next worst for goals conceded this season for Port. Here's Muyetz. Where are the options here for Port Melbourne? They were coming through the form of Serra down the right, but it was a good block in midfield by Yildiz. Kept it alive, but gives it away, although that's good work from Kellart, who now plays it in behind, although it doesn't get past young Yankolovsky playing in defence tonight. A big frame of the young man, Oliver Yankolovsky. That's spun well out of play by Dennis Yildiz.
Yeah, I had a look at Yankolovsky. He actually came through the under-23s, and that's obviously been getting an opportunity. Karmas is out, so there's obviously opportunities there, but yeah, it's good to see younger players in the NPL. All
the way back to Michael Weir for a rare touch so far. There's been a few different centre-back pairings this season already for Port Melbourne. Yankolovsky in tonight, as we said. Riyad Muyet only joins the team a couple of weeks into the season. Amanon Karmas as well. There's been a couple of different. Nathan Dibb is pretty versatile across the back four. They've mixed and matched, trying to find the right combination to stem the flow. Yildiz to Usal. Usal brought down. Good to see Dennis Yildiz back in the NPL Victoria setup after several years away playing in Turkey. Phenomenal experience, I imagine that was for Dennis Yildiz, not just to be there briefly, but spend a good chunk of time there, which is a testament to him.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of players, we hear the track record, a lot of Australian players go overseas and maybe stay half a season, one season, etc. It's great to see players 4 or 5 years in the career.
Kurda, that set piece was pretty low, easy enough to deal with so far for Port Melbourne. And now they can try and spring a counter-attack. Here's Alessandratos. It was very clever the way he did that, Alessandratos, and that's going to bring about a yellow card to Birkin Kurda. It was crafty stuff, Peter. He saw the contact coming. He saw Kurda coming in from his peripheral vision, just pushed it on, got rid of the ball from that situation and allowed it to be man-on-man. He knew exactly what he was doing, Alessandratos.
He is. I mean, he came from Pascoe Vale, exciting player, a lot of goals. And he was in. There was an article earlier this year, which I always look forward to. It's just before the NPL season, the top 40 under 23s, you can probably say, in the NPL Victoria, across all teams. Probably not so much Melbourne Victory because they're all under 23. But going back to Alessandratos was one of the players that was identified there, and we know I think he scored 2 goals this season, and he's a very, very important player. I hope he's not hurt because if we talk X factor, Jordan, he's your guy for Port Melbourne.
It was crafty from Alessandratos, as I said, but it's actually maybe hurt him more than he was hoping for. And so it's going to be a free kick here as running repairs done on the bench. Alec Bechvanovsky will take the free. Port looking to test the Hume City defence for the first time. Sent in by Bechvanovsky. Cleared away by Kel Art. Yankolovsky lets it bounce. Got helping support from Muyets as Harker was trying to harangue them. Laban turns it around the corner. Serra. And Port will settle here. Flicked over the top by Farrow, playing out on the left. McCloskey's out there as well for Port Melbourne. One back by Hume. Ford sends it from one end to the other. Here's Harker. He can bear down on the goalkeeper. Harker opens the scoring for Hume City. It was a blistering counter-attack down the right sides. Joseph Ford sent them into motion. Harker got in behind the line. He was one-on-one on the angle with Luka Romic and finished coolly Robert Harker for his first goal in the top flight of Victorian football.
Yes, it looks like a traditional number 9, an English number 9, but that finish is that English style lower league finish, and you can see he took it very nicely and really got behind. And I think Port Melbourne, they've been playing a little bit off the shoulder of Harker, but he just got 2. I was very surprised he just got behind them, and it really just opened up, and the keeper had no chance. So fantastic start for Harker. With him in the team, East Grove, we could see a push here by Hume because you find another striking option, and that's something they need in order to compete in the top 6.
And there's an early substitution made here for Port Melbourne. The injury earlier was actually to Nathan Dibb, who's come off. And it's going to be Aidan Brown who comes on. We'll just get that confirmed. It was Nathan Dibb who came off with the injury. Just double checking that it was exactly him who has been subbed as the 4th officials board goes up now. But a change after just 12 minutes here for It is indeed Nathan Dibb. A change early for Port Melbourne.
You mentioned Nathan Dibb. He's had a bit similar, I would say, 4 years in the Czech Republic. Pretty decent career. He's done very well there. Very experienced, especially for Port, who have got, I would say, a lot of younger players or players that are new to the NPL at this top level, and that's a bit of a blow for them.
Another attack looking to be opened up here by Hume. It's a decent touch for Kellart to get him away from Mouillet, but it's taken him wide. And good following up from Riyad Mouillet.
Yes, good following up there, Mouillet. I mean, he had to get that Kellart looking dangerous. He's swinging across. He's going the left. He's going the right. He's opening up. I think you're probably, in terms of that type of player, you might need a bit of hybrid defending, man mark or zone, because otherwise he can cause damage, and we've seen that twice now.
Thrown in, Yildiz sends it in. Trashevsky there clears it off the head. Yildiz with it again. It's a high ball, back posts. Russell couldn't quite, he almost ran underneath it, Russell, so it went behind as it skimmed off his forehead. Still alive here though for Hume. Here's Ford. Russell again. Ford skipping around Serra. Still going forward as well, got it back. It's a good helping hand he got from the midfield. And it's spun away for a corner here for Hume City. Quickly before the corner, Peter, there's a change for Port Melbourne in terms of, so with that sub coming on, Aidan Brown is not a defender, Nathan Dibb is, so it's meant a bit of a restructure with Serra going to left back, and they've moved Alec Bechvanovsky from the wing down to right back. There's just a stoppage in play here, as there's a patron just outside the fence here who has gone down with a medical episode. So we're going to pause play for just a moment here while they're attended to. So this might also obviously see stoppage, so the players will come over and just take a break for a second while the patron is attended to. Luckily, there's medical staff on the benches for both these teams, physios and people who are medically qualified. So the spectator is able to get the requisite attention.
Yes, it's below our box here. It's a bit concerning, but there are officials and it looks like medical experts attending to that spectator. Bit of a break, as you say. Port Melbourne maybe need to change a little bit their structure, see if they might go into maybe a different format in the sense of the way they set up, but a chance to maybe regroup. And I can see Markovsky giving a lot of different instructions so they can get back into this game, because it's an early setback, a young team, and it's about confidence, and you really can't let Hume get that confidence because they do have those players.
And already with a back four that has been chopped and changed many times this season, now they've had to make the in-game change as well, with Nathan Dibb going off with that what looked like a right shoulder injury anyway from our perspective, and having to reshuffle things. It looks to me, I don't want to speculate on areas that I'm not qualified in, but it looks like the patron is conscious, which is good, and they're still being tended to at the moment. But the officials have said we are able to go back into the action, so we will continue on while everyone receives the right treatment down beneath.
Yeah, we wish all the best to the patron, to everyone. We want everyone to get back home safely. That's what it's about with football, both on the pitch and off the pitch.
Short corner taken here by Hume. Kellart plays it back to the byline. Ishak will send it in, and the flag had gone up anyway. Oh, loose-ish touch. Mouillet had to be quick onto that. Trashevsky being harried. That's good work from Oliver Kellart. Well, so he thought.
Marchioli, I think, the coach there. Yeah. Hume, we don't mean to laugh, really calling out the referee, but I believe the referee made the right decision there, and there was clear cut. You can tell the way that the player came down. So, but we need a bit of humour in football. That's what it's about.
Bromwich looking for Farrow, who has to really hustle out to get that. Did pretty well in the end. Finds Brown. Quick interplay between the two of them. Farrow back to Brown. Kept alive here by the Sharks. Serra into Trashchevsky. Brown leading the line, dropping in. Laban. Muyets. Bechvanovsky spreads it out to McCloskey. Whips it in. There was no one there for the Sharks. Nodded away by Ishak.
You mentioned Bechvanovsky coming back into sort of a left-back position. That's what flyer-type wing-backs are these days. They can play both sides.
McCloskey runs to the byline. He was upended by Yildiz. Port trying to force the issue here. Keeping it in their front half, but Hume might have just unlocked them. O'Kane goes back to Usal. Turned over. Laban working in a phone box. There's not much space in that midfield right now, but there's space in behind the lines. Here's Harker again. Stayed onside. Port's defence hurrying back. Here's Ford barrelling forwards and was adventurous. He had a sudden surge of confidence there, Joseph Ford, and went for it.
And why not? I believe he was in the under-20s. Australian. It could be Australian. I know he played in Waterford in Ireland, but he was a Perth Glory. Has got that pedigree. Maybe hasn't progressed as many. You know, it's very competitive to get to the top level. We know only 1-2% make it professional, in other words. But got a lot of ability. Will be disappointed with that finish, I would say, because he had time, he had space, and he had good positioning.
Getting himself into this match now, Harker, not only on the scoreboard as his goal separates these two sides, but finding his way into the feel of the game. Kellard and Harker able to wax between themselves as those central two players leading the line. McCloskey. It's passed to Laban. And this is Trashchevsky on the ball. Turned over as he was seeking Farrow. O'Kane. Russell overlapping. First time cross. Nipped away by Trashchevsky. And Yakolovsky will just hoof it away. Hume will bring it straight back in though. Dealt with by Muyets. Russell did well. Hume have some space now on the left. Yildiz. Here's Mehmet Usal. Wants to cut in on that right. Goes wide instead. Yildiz staying wide with his left-footed cross. And it's off Riyad Muyets and behind for another corner. Set pieces, Peter, starting to rack up here for Hume City.
They are, and we know that with set pieces, Port have struggled a little bit as well. So, and as you said, their centre backs or the defensive line is quite vulnerable. I've got to say that Yildiz, a lot of creativity. He can swing left, swing right, and really get into good positions. And that shows, obviously, his experience from Turkey. I'm looking at Laban, very important for Port. Dictates the tempo, needs to get a little bit more into the game.
Birkan Kerdar to send this in. Goes the short option instead to Usal. Usal to the back post. Laban is there doing his defensive duties. And Yankolovsky again just goes route one all the way down the other end to release the pressure. It might open up here again for Hume. Here's Russell running out of space down that right as he was marked tightly by Riyad Muyetz. And again, it comes off the centre-back out for another corner.
Yeah, it looks like he's a pretty hard worker. Russell's an interesting one. I know that Hume recruited, I think, maybe 3 players from the Gold Coast Knights who've been one of the powerhouse teams in Queensland. And that's a pattern we do see in the NPL, that a lot of Queenslanders do come in. Michael Weir's a Queenslander as well, so a lot of players see Victoria as a launching pad.
Kiradah's corner. Into O'Kane, comes off the ground, and it's somehow sneaked in. It's a second goal for Hume City. Joshua O'Kane had the touch. There surely was a deflection somewhere because Luka Romic looked like he was completely bamboozled by that, but it sneaks in alongside that post, and it's a second goal for Hume City. 2-0 in the first half. And we've played just the 24 minutes here at JL Murphy Reserve, Peter.
Yes, Josh O'Kane, I would say he mishit that a little bit. Romic will be very disappointed the way he dealt with that. O'Kane, a very interesting player, has come through the ranks for Hume, so it's good to see that sort of pathway transition. A little mishit, but in that spot where he's quite dangerous, and a late reaction there by Romic. Great goal in the sense, 2-0.
Yeah, through the traffic, and in it went. Okay, that's his second goal of the season. Just a young man, O'Kane, at 21 years old, came through the youth ranks at Hume City, spent a bit of time at Sydney Olympic. Now playing pretty regular first-team football here for Hume. And a 2-0 lead for Hume City. Back on the scorer's sheet for the first time since round number 7 when they had a 1-1 draw with South Melbourne. They went goalless in their last 2 fixtures against Avondale and Oakley.
You just mentioned Oakley. I'm just going around the grounds very quickly. Oakley, Dandenong City, 2-0 in 26th minute for Oakley. And in the second half, Dandy Thunder, 3-0 up at Melbourne Knights.
Hume putting it in the box again. Just a little bit behind Usal. Lays it off to Yildiz. McCloskey pressures him and booted away by Bechvanovsky all the way up towards Brown, who's being out-muscled 2-1. And Ashcroft sends it back. The touch from Weir. He continued to work hard there. Brown, who closed down Ashcroft.
You mentioned Brown. He probably needs a little bit more support. Farrow and even McCloskey need to get closer, because the way Hume set up, it's like a mid-block. They're pushing Port Melbourne down and basically making it very hard to get out. But you've got to put a bit more of a high press. But you need numbers for that, and Port aren't getting numbers up the front.
Well, it looked like it came off the hand of Yankolovsky. Referee's going to let that go. Hume have spent most of the start of the season in the top 6. Those dropped games in the last month, the loss to Heidelberg, Avondale, Oakley, and then a draw with South Melbourne means that they've just fallen outside the 6 for the moment, but they've got a nice month ahead with Port Melbourne tonight, followed up by Melbourne Knights next week, who have been hovering around the drop zone. Melbourne Victory and St Albans after that, so all games that they would fancy themselves to get points in. Keeping the tempo up here as well against the Sharks tonight. Ford runs out of room. O'Kane through midfield, keeps it moving. Ishak skids that along the turf to Russell. Goes for a daring run. Russell sends it in. Harker! And the flag had gone up. It was right on the limit there for that Port Melbourne defence, who were almost caught out of shape by the movement of Harker inside the 18-yard box, but helps by the offside flag.
Yes, first 5 minutes I was looking at Harker, probably very traditional, but it seems like he's got a lot of movement, got behind there. Look, too much room. I mean, if you're playing the back line, a big striker like that getting in those positions, yes, it was offside. That's just too much room for Port Melbourne to leave, and very vulnerable at the back at the moment.
Another midfield battle. Nearly won by Hume, but this time Port come out on top. Laban trying to get the wheels turning here for the Sharks. And Yankolovsky will retreat all the way back to his goalkeeper, Romic. But Shvanovsky takes off down the right flank. Heavy touch from Muyet, just unravels things a little bit. Big collision as well. All fair though. Just a bit winded maybe, Yildiz.
Yeah, players going in. It's that kind of game where, you know, the 50-50 ball, the duel, it's all about the duel, winning that one-on-one duel, and that's where teams can build momentum and transition. Hume looked much more solid defensively. You mentioned some big losses recently, other than the South Melbourne game. But today, obviously it is Port Melbourne, but they really are looking much more. And you can tell is Shark really talking to his players and really keeping everyone focused.
Advantage played here for Port Melbourne. McCloskey down the right is apprehended. Keeps possession though. Now Laban cuts away from Kellart. Sends it to the back stick. Farrow's the option. That full stretch to keep it in. Brown. A lot of white shirts in there. John Markovsky was appealing for a handball down beneath in the dugout. Ishak will send it away. And Kierdash shields it from McCloskey. First time we've seen Port Melbourne really busy around the 18-yard box.
That's right. I mean, Farrer, Brown, they need to get into the box. I mean, they need to create those opportunities, looking for a second ball maybe, but really put some pressure on Hume. Otherwise, it's really Hume dictating terms.
McCloskey stretches to try and play that through to Alison Dratos, and out it goes. Goal kick. "15 minutes to go in this first half. Robert Harker and Josh O'Kane, the scorers for Hume City.
I'm just looking at Harker now. He's actually reached out to the right, so Kellart could go in the middle. So they're obviously mixing up. This is smart by Matt Sholey, because it also confuses the defenders who, if you're going to man mark or zone, you've got to change your approach.
Ford. Ishak. Now Yildiz. Space to press into here for Hume City. Usal floats one right into the hands of Luka Romic.
I'm looking at Yildiz. He's really floating in, floating out, covering a lot of ground and providing those options for Hume. And that's what the experience he's had. But also that's game intelligence too, because the way you sort of move at the right times is very important. And now he's just switching between, now he's playing left back.
Laban steps away from Harker. Gets Farrow into motion. Up against Ford. Farrow wearing the captain's armband tonight in the absence of Nick Dibb. Loses out in possession to Joel Russell, who's going on a darting run down that right. He's still going, now upended by the much larger Mitch Trashchevsky from midfield. He's a busy young player, Joel Russell, the Queenslander. Highly talented player from a long way out, Joel Russell, who was from Northern Queensland, up in Townsville, lived overseas for a bit in Portugal and in the United States. And he's made the quick transition down into first team football in Victoria at the age of 22.
That's why Jordan, NPL Victoria, is the number one NPL. I've always said it. And a lot of my New South Wales colleagues, I know a lot of people up there will not like that. But at the end of the day, when you're getting people from Perth, Queensland, and overseas, now you're getting a lot of players from Japan. We don't have it here today. You're really seeing that how the improvement and really where our NPLs are. And I just got to refer to some of the cup runs recently too with NPL Victorian teams. And we've got to highlight that.
Yeah, I too have a few friends who are part of NPL New South Wales, and whenever we chat about football, they roll their eyes and say, "Oh yeah, NPL Victoria, the centre of the universe." And I say, "Yes,
yes,
that's right."
Yes, but they play a lot of artificial pitches, so it's sometimes a little bit different. It's a Bulleen style in a sense.
Yeah.
To digress here, so we better let's get back to the football.
Muyet went to step away immediately, and now he's left space in behind. I don't know if that was the right option from Riyad Muyet. Hume City, Rousseau sends it in. Sarah, flag went up. Yes, it did.
Very lucky there, because Sarah gave the ball away, and there was an opportunity. I don't think it was Kellart that could have put it away, but the offside flag saved Port on that occasion. But you can't take those risks when you're 2-0 down and trying to play those sort of side passes. You've got to be very careful. But also, it surprised me that Hume are getting behind quite easily, and that'll be very, very concerning for John Markovsky.
It's getting a little loose there. Alessandratos tried to be cute with the back flick. Yildiz. Alessandratos again. Brought down by Kirdar. Yankolovsky across to Sarah. Farrow's been really troubled by this matchup against Joe Ford, the right back for Hume. He's been excellent tonight, set up the first goal and has defended his side of the field well. Port have to be careful here. Oh, Romic, he's kicked it straight into the oncoming Hume player in Kellart. Kirdar has got Russell bombing down the right, decides to play it a bit more conservative to O'Kane next to him.
Interesting battle between Berta Kirdar and Alessandratos. Alessandratos coming from the lower leagues, I could say, or Pascoe Vale. Berta Kirdar been at the top, the A-League. But both similar players, both got that sort of attributes and characteristics that can turn the game. That sort of classiness, that ability to turn and make something out of nothing. That's an interesting matchup.
Also noticing how high that front line of Hume are playing. They were right on the shoulders of the Port Melbourne defence. Harker was standing adjacent to Riyad Muyet when they had possession. Here's Bechmanovsky. Owen McCloskey. He's got Brown getting into the area, but that was all that was there really. Played it early and won the corner though for the Sharks.
You mentioned there, Jordan, a bit of a high press and a mid-block. It's like an interchange that Hume are doing and forcing it up high and trying to get the turnover, but also not letting Port get into the final third.
Alessandratos with the corner, puts it right onto Michael Weir, who is so dominant in his 2-metre frame. Went straight into the breadbasket for the goalkeeper.
Hasn't had much to do, Michael Weir. And even, I'll say, Romic, not that many saves pulled off. It's just been the goals and one or two other incidents. So really there hasn't been that many shots, or the shot stoppers haven't really been tested, albeit we do have 2 goals. Yeah,
it's almost... you kind of can almost draw some parallels to a couple of weeks ago for Port Melbourne in that 3-2 win against Preston, where Preston were the dominant team, but then they just nipped a goal here or there. Port, and it changed the game if they can do that. And this attack looks all right as well. Here's Brown into the 18-yard box, and it's shunted out for a corner for Port Melbourne. They are obviously on the back foot in most games they've played this season, Port, but once they get a goal on the board, then it sort of turns the tide for the Sharks.
It does. It seems like they have this, they just come out of a different character, if I could say that, and take control and look dangerous.
Still time left before half-time as well. Alessandrados, another corner, and tipped over by Michael Weir, taking no chances.
Good delivery, Alessandrados. Obviously, sometimes a bit close to Weir, but he does have a very good, I would say, set piece or cross, whatever you want to call it. Very, very smooth and showing some really good attributes. And this is where they need to press. They need someone to just outside the box for a second ball. Really put it a little bit away from Weir too, because he's a very good keeper, very good in the air, one of the tallest in the NPL. So got to be a little bit more strategic here in this attack, Port.
It'll be Farrow from this side. Corner sent in low and hooked up and high out from Harker. Didn't go too far though. Russell at the fall. Roussel puts his body in the way. Farrow's in there as well. And O'Kane finally gets it clear, but Port bearing down. We get into midfield to Laban. Bechvanovsky. Trashchevsky was a bit flat-footed. That opened the door for Hume City to win it back. Kellart's bombing forward, as is Harker. It's a nice pass curled down the line. Harker wants to go from a long way out. Took a little bobble, but Romic was right behind it.
Surprising pace for Harker. Bechvanovsky's no slouch. He's a very fast player and just got behind him, burnt him quite a bit there. So he's got a little bit, and this is maybe what Hume need, another striker who's going to provide options, provide solutions, and coming in with this Grove out, that's something that, Hume need.
Still a lot of very handy players we haven't got in the squad tonight for Hume City, with Isgrove, as you said. Aaron Reardon as well, not in the team at the moment. They had Tom Maricic in their squad to start the season. Hasn't been seen, though, yet. Godfrey Debele is one of the other players from the Gold Coast Knights that you mentioned that was brought in. Some of the names absent. We haven't seen Josh Bingham for a while as well. He is back in the squad tonight, though, so back in the mix for Hume. He's on the bench. Mark Ochieng as well is on the pine for Hume. So they've got some experience to draw upon.
Yeah, I think also Muhammad Adam, I don't know if he's still there, but he's also not there tonight. So there is a lot of options. And Hume, if they can get the result tonight, get back in the six. As you said, quite a few games lined up. They could solidify their position in the six.
The run from Bechvanovsky was ended. Roussel and Ishak closing in. Kyodar goes falling out of play. Can Port Melbourne try and force the issue before half-time? Still a few minutes to go.
As you said, one goal is a momentum swinger. Just before half-time could change the whole complexion or the whole picture here. But Port Melbourne, it just seemed like they don't have the solutions at the moment. I'm a little bit disappointed with Farrow because I know he's played at Preston. He's got a lot of experience as the captain. He would have been disappointed with that little bit, that corner he gave, and just a little bit what he's providing. So need a little bit more lift from all the players, and it can turn around.
They're starting to even out the momentum, aren't they, here, Port Melbourne? It's certainly not as Hume heavy as it was in the first 20 or 30 minutes of the first half, but they just haven't got the finished product and the connection to the final third, have they, the Sharks?
No, they don't, and that's the important. I mean, Trzeski, Sandrados need to connect a little bit more with their forwards, and there's always been a bit of a gap there.
Oh, here's a moment, though, for Port Melbourne. It might open up. There's a shot, and there is the goal! And it's Alessandratos again, who is starting to get himself on the score sheet with regularity this season for Port Melbourne. It was Brown who had drifted wide. Alessandratos came through the channels up the middle. And just that one flashpoint in the game, Peter, and it's opened up a goal and a chance. And a 2-1 scoreline now here at JL Murphy Reserve.
I don't know, I maybe jinxed him, but I did talk him up earlier and said he's got that little X factor when he obviously was with Kurda, that comparison. But fantastic finish, really stylish. A player that's really lifted into the NPL, and really that's a classy finish in anyone's, even A-League's level, and really brought it back into the game. I said we need to see the link up, and what happens? He pops up right there, right place, and fantastic finish, and we'll be disappointed. Actually, it looked a bit too easy.
So right before half-time, the goal on the board for Thomas Alessandratos, who is impressing this season for the Sharks. And they have been the better team of the last 10 or 15 minutes, Port Melbourne. Here's McCloskey, looking to continue this strong finish all the way to the final whistle of the first half. Port Melbourne. Leban. Away to Serra. Hasn't always been tidy from the Sharks, but they've got a goal on the board now. Here's McCloskey again. Bechvanovsky whips it into the back posts, and we are rising high.
You can see the Port players, the body language, the urgency, it's all up. McCloskey working hard. Bechvanovsky a bit disappointed with that. That's a bit too high, especially with a goalkeeper like that. But you can see the urgency, you can see the confidence a little bit higher. They know they're in this now, and everyone's, buzzing a little bit more.
4 minutes of additional time at the end of this first half. We've had a few breaks with plenty of set pieces, 3 goals. And we had an earlier medical episode as well, so 4 minutes still to go.
Keep going, Thomas, keep driving. Knock it past him.
Here's Alessandratos flirting with the sideline and going out.
Just out there. John Markowski not happy, but it did look out.
Yep.
Definitely out, but you can tell they're fired up on the Port bench. They know they're back in this. Hume seems to have faded a little bit. I'm not saying it's fitness, I'm not saying it's intensity, I'm not saying it's concentration, but seems they've just faded a little bit in terms of gears.
Beginning to heat up on the sidelines as well. So much so that Riccardo Marchioli's got himself a yellow card, which John Markowski promptly applauds from the other side of the dugouts.
I'm not going to comment on that. Let the referee deal with that, and it dealt with that. But we can hear him from this sideline. Jordan, they can see the body language and the language.
Romic plays a long one out to Daniel Serra. Knocked out of play.
If you look at Hume now, they've actually pressed back, not even a mid-block at the moment, really not pushing as much up front. The high press that we saw before is not there, and really now it's opening up a little bit for Port to find those channels. That's what it's about.
Yeah, sitting on the back foot right now, Hume City. Almost trying to safeguard their way to the halftime interval. Here's Mehmet Usal. Sent away by Harry Ashcroft. Long vertical play out towards Russell. It's been a live wire on the right. Still going Russell. And they've run themselves a corner late in the piece here, Hume City.
Yeah, Russell looks like a good player, obviously. Gold Coast Knights have really developed a lot of players, or a lot of players coming out of there with something. Obviously, they've been big champions in Queensland in the NPL there, but a lot of players, and it's good to see that Victorian teams are scouting, or at least looking at some of these players to bring them in to showcase, you know, these different type of fit, athletic, exciting type players in order to embellish the competition, and Russell's definitely one of those.
Kirdars corner. Harker. He was just off balance through the air there, Robert Harker.
He's got the presence, Harker, and you know, Kirdars got the disposal. That's something in terms of the second half they're probably going to work on. But Hume need to regroup a little bit because they've let Port into this game. The Port tails are up. The players are starting to believe a little bit more, and as you said, getting that goal, Jordan, does perk up Port, and they can be very dangerous on this pitch. We saw it against Preston, and there's not that much difference in the bottom team and, say, the team in third and fourth here. This is the NPL's very competitive this year.
The end of the first half and a strong finish from Port Melbourne. Hume City started the better of the two sides. Really was a half of two halves, to use a cliche. It was Hume City who scored the first two goals. Robert Harker off the back of a nice switch in play and a counter-attack from Joseph Ford down the right side to get them on the score sheet after 12 minutes. And that was doubled by Josh O'Kane, who put it in with a slight deflection from the corner. But Port Melbourne finished that first half the stronger of the two teams. Wasn't always clean and pretty, but they got the result they wanted to go into half-time with a goal on the board. It is still a 2. Welcome back to our coverage of this round 10 clash between Hume City and Port Melbourne here at JL Murphy Reserve, the home of Port Melbourne this evening. The start of the second half is right upon us. Here we go. It's 2-1 lead for Hume City. Harker and O'Kane, the scorers, first up for a 2-0 lead in the first half, and then Thomas Alessandratos pinched one back right before the half-time interval for Port Melbourne to make it this scoreline at the moment. And as I welcome you back, Peter Paleologos, alongside myself, Jordan Canellis, there's been one change for Port Melbourne at half-time, with Josh Markovski coming on and Delano Farrow coming off, who you had picked out as someone who needed to lift really from that first half, and John Markovski said, let's just change him entirely.
Yeah. Farrow, very important. Obviously scored 2 goals this year for Port Melbourne, but maybe Markovski, something different, a bit taller, a bit more of a presence up front, a bit of experience from Altona Magic, something different, and you've got to take those risks. And Port are in this. It's going to be very interesting these first 5-10 minutes, Jordan, and how the tempo sort of goes, because Port Melbourne had the momentum at that latter part of that first half.
So Markovski goes straight to the top of the formation, which means Aidan Brown has been moved out to the right wing, and Owen McCloskey goes from the right wing to the left wing. So shuffle from the front three for Port Melbourne.
It looks like Port Melbourne have set up as a 4-1-2-3, or you can call it a 4-3-3, but pretty much you've got Laban sitting at the front of the defenders.
Here's Trashchevsky, the more advanced of the midfield group, playing it out to McCloskey. That was a clean challenge from Ashcroft.
Experienced player, Ashcroft. You've got A-League, you've got big reputation. It was more of it wasn't always a centre back, but now with that experience, you tend to move into that position.
Played overseas briefly as well in Europe. Here goes Serra, sends it in, back post. Took a slight touch, and it will be a corner here for Port Melbourne, who have started very well.
They have. I mean, Hume just gave so much space. Serra just couldn't believe it. Got right into the box, but there was a bit of a ricochet. Now there's a corner, but really straight into it, and a bit of vulnerability there shown by the Hume defenders.
Hume certainly outweighed Port Melbourne in the set-piece category from the first half. Alessandratos to send this in for Port Melbourne. Whips it in right to the back post. It went over Michael Weir, and Aidan Brown was just a few yards too high for that as it went over him.
Very good swerve there by Alessandratos. No one at the back post, unfortunately. They don't have... Markovski's come on, but I wouldn't say he's a target man per se. Big striker, but just missing someone behind there. To beat Weir like that takes a little bit. So, very, very smart swerve ball, causing all sorts.
Yet heads it on. Populating the area heavily here are Hume City. Usal underran the ball. And sent away by Port. McCloskey, good challenge in on Ford. So a new matchup here for Ford in the second half. He had Delano Farrow, who he had resoundingly beaten, I think, in the first half, to my opinion anyway. Now he's got the challenge of McCloskey. There's a bit more of a gangly, rangy kind of winger with a long stride. So a different kind of player to come up against.
Yeah, McCloskey's an interesting player, playing on the left wing. Haven't seen him get too forward. He hasn't been in striking position. That's maybe something now with Markovski there, able to really get those two players really straight out onto the Hume line. But yeah, McCloskey now looking a bit mobile, providing that left option, and there you go.
Over the top it goes. McCloskey up against Russell here, the winger. Russell getting back in defence. and did well enough to keep him on the sideline and goes out of play. Really noticing here, Peter, how attacking this current shape of Port Melbourne is. They're getting a lot of players up in really advanced areas, almost leaving their back line very exposed, but just rolling the dice here, the Sharks.
Yeah, we called a high press for Hume earlier in the first half. Seems like that's what's happened now for Port Melbourne. I think the coach has realised that Hume have taken a little bit off the pedal, and they're pushing and maybe looking for that mistake again and able to get that second goal.
Turning out well for them so far, with the lion's share of possession in the opening 5 or so minutes of the second half. Here's Mouillet. Comes striding out of his defensive line. Into Trashchevsky, who's taken the armband here since Farrow went off. It's Mehmet Usal, who ferrets away out on the far side for Hume. Kerdar tried to play it forward, but hit some traffic. Back to Mouillet. Ishak goes to ground.
Just looking at the shape of Hume, looks like 4-3-3. The midfield might change to 4-4-2, but pretty much the traditional 4-3-3. And really, I think, trying to play a little bit out of the back. But it's going to be interesting the second half. They've got to find a little bit more options, a bit more transition, and a little bit getting their forwards. They haven't done a high press for a while as well, so maybe need to mix it up a little bit, Hume.
Romic again targeting this near side. They've opted to go down the left more often than not so far, though that's a pretty big switch of play as I say that from Serra. Not necessarily by design, just got it onto the boot.
Sometimes whatever it takes.
Kerdar in midfield here for Hume City. It's a piercing ball with a flag. Well, it's not really needed in the end as it actually goes out of play.
Hume needs to play a little bit like the first part of the first half. A bit more compact, put that pressure on, get that balance right in the midfield in order to create the opportunities.
Kellard almost finds a passage through, but Luka Romic was out quickly off his line, smothering the play. It was just a flick touch which played Kellard through almost by accident. And the goalkeeper was onto it in a flash for the Sharks. Yankolovsky. Laban retrieves possession. McCloskey couldn't spin out of trouble. Ford coughs it up. Serra sees the run forward. Here's a move for the Sharks. Well run down by Alison Drados. And then he just couldn't get the second touch. First touch brought it down nicely, but couldn't really gather it in. And Hume able to smother him out of play.
Covered a lot of ground there, Lisandrados. Does look the dangerous player for Port, and really is coming from the midfield, and the attention of the Hume defenders is obviously on Markovsky, and this is where you get into the channels and get behind. So that is an option for Port this second half. Really got to focus on that.
Harry Ashcroft alongside Nathan Ishak for Hume City in defence. Keller tries to wriggle out of a tight spot.
I can see Port getting a little bit more press, a bit more tighter with their players, especially with Hume attacking. Hume need a little bit better game management. They started really well in that first half. Just to deal with the game. They're still in front 2-1. They've got control of the game in terms of the scoreline. Just got to see a little bit more control of the game in the midfield and the tempo, because they've lost that game management they had early on.
There's a bit of holding going on there between Harker and Laban. It's just a silly one to give away from Harker, who just had all of Laban's arm and just didn't want to let go.
I don't know, he lost his head right in front of the referee. That's just unbelievable. Of course you had to drag a yellow card. But Port Melbourne looking quite dangerous, and this is another opportunity for them. We've seen that many set pieces. We've seen Alice Andrados for fantastic delivery, but let's see one from out here.
All yellow cards tonight have gone to Hume City, Kurda, Harker, and the coach, Ricky Marchioli's got one as well. Long set piece here for Port Melbourne. Trashchevsky is the target at the back post, being one of the tall men, but tallest man is Michael Weir again.
Yeah, a bit overcooked there, overdone, Jordan. I think you got to get too close to Weir's got that ability just to, don't want to talk AFL football, but pretty much that ability.
Russell, heavy touch, allows McCloskey a chance to pressure him. It's well done from Owen McCloskey in the end. Gets a rousing reception from his side of the dugouts. Goal kick for Port Melbourne, and a change first though for Hume City. They're going to introduce Michael Domfet into the contest. And it's going to be Harker to come off. Just making the slow trudge over for his exit tonight. Has the goal though. First goal of the game.
Yeah, good second game, I believe. Jordan, good effort there by Harker. Provided something. Obviously hasn't had that many games in his legs, but really done sort of provide this option, and quite mobile. I initially underestimated him, but quite mobile as a striker.
McCloskey down the left, and speared out of play by Ford. Michael Domfet, who came across from Northcote City in the off-season, was the Golden Boot winner in VPL 1 last year, so he's made the jump up this season. Former Perth Glory youth player, so coming along the same pathway as Joseph Ford did. High one into the box, and again that's just going to favour Michael Weir every day, who releases quickly. Only one man up there in the sub in Domfet. He's got the bounce though, and they've got the key bounce on the second time as well. He's Kellart straight to Romich, who had a little bobble but got himself behind it. There's just a few marginal errors in defence there for Port Melbourne. A bounce here and a loose touch there, and it allowed Domfet and Kellart to put the pressure on, but Port Melbourne survived that foray.
Yeah, Kellart had Domfet, I believe, 2 goals this year for Hume. Maybe could have passed it to him, but considering where he was, Kellart the shot, good Romich, good positioning.
Indeed, he has 2 goals this season, Michael Domfet, as you say, including the late sealer in round number 4 against Dandenong City in the 90th minute for a 3-1 victory. He's going to be involved around the play here as well. Domfet comes out to Kurda, who looked to strike on the volley, but yet put himself in harm's way. Here's Kurda again. Good challenge from Trashchevsky. Markovsky upended by Ishak. And that was done just a little overzealous from the judgment of the referee against Ishak. I think there's a fair call upon review. It was all man. McCloskey again being given another chance to try and beat Ford. Gets it through his legs. Now Serra cuts it across. Ashcroft sliding in the direction of the ball. Laban cuts away and then almost trod on the ball, and that's his unravelling. Now Hume City moving down the far side. Hussail into Kellart. And Romich tried to kick it out over the sideline, but it's off the side of his boot and behind for a corner here for Hume City.
I can see why Laban would be disappointed. He actually had a player where if he could have played the ball through, would have opened up a little bit of Hume. Lost the ball. Hume on the transition, the counter attack, and now they've got a corner. So I'd be quite disappointed there. I think it's fine margins, and it's really got to be on top of that, especially this part of the game. You don't want to go 3-1 down.
Corner here for Hume. Kurandar's been on duty on his right boot several times in the contest already. Sends it in front post. Brown heads it away. Kellart, left-footed strike. And didn't quite hit it all that sweet. Might have taken a deflection off his own teammate as well. And it's a goal kick for Port Melbourne. As we've hit the hour mark here, J.L. Murphy reserve scores as they were from half-time, a 2-1 lead for Hume City.
Keller had a bit of time there, I would say. He had actually brought it down, had a bit of time. The Port defender's got to be a little bit more accountable there. You cannot allow a player just within the box there, that time and space. Keller will be very disappointed with his finish, but you must ensure in terms of defensive duties, not allow him that space.
Good. Well done. Look up. Double.
It was a lot more even this second half than the first did, where we had two big patches one way and then the other for Hume first and then for Port Melbourne. It feels like this first 15-minute period of the second half has been a bit more even across the board in what is now a tighter arm wrestle. Sent in by Port Melbourne and off the chest of Josh Markovski. Domfe tried to nod it past Yankolovsky, who put the bodywork on. Domfe continues on, showing his speed, the big striker. Yankolovsky just held him up enough to get the reinforcements back. Here's Russell. That's a good tackle from Serra. Challenged him cleanly, won it back. Markovsky swivelling out of traffic, but then running into trouble. That's a Port Melbourne throw. No, it's a Hume throw. Flag went left and then right.
Yeah, I think it ended up being a Hume throw. Just some around the grounds for our viewers tonight. Dandy Thunder 3-0 at Melbourne Knights, and currently Oakley leading Dandenong City 2-0.
Triple header this evening in your round 10 schedule of NPL Victoria football. Oh, Muyet's had a little moment there. His touch was a bit loose. Recovered well. Now Laban. Very congested midfield area at the moment. And Russell just leaving a little bit in behind on Daniel Serra.
Yeah, the referee, Puya Kardashian, I think he just wanted to let the play go, and he would have called it, just let it a bit of time. That's what you want. You want referees to allow that advantage to happen. It looks a bit of an injury here. We might have a break, although now it's showing that he might get up. But yeah, Port Melbourne, they're showing signs. They've still got the capacity for the second goal, and Hume really, I think they've got to be very careful, because if Port Melbourne get that opportunity and get that equaliser, we could see a Preston scenario here.
Second ball.
In midfield, it was just never really controlled there by Russell. Port looking for Alison Dratos. Big sliding challenge from Trashchevsky, and then Alison Dratos continued his work rate out to try and retain possession for Port Melbourne. Hume take over, however. Kiradar looking to change direction. And Hume will take a bit of the tempo out of this. Russell waiting on the right wing. It's a little bit loose there from Hume City. Just couldn't quite bring the ball down. Opting to keep it in the air. Ashcroft nods it away. Laban dominating the space in the centre circle. And now pushing forward as well, Laban, who wants to go from range, and that is out of play. It was just a hopeful attempt from distance from Anthony Laban. And another change here for Riccardo Macchioli's men. It's going to be Josh Bingham who's coming on. And coming off will be Oliver Kellart. So a change up front, and we see the return of Bingham, who is the captain of this team. Hasn't played for the last couple of weeks, only has the 4 matches played this season. Today, number 5, 10 rounds into the campaign.
Very handy player to have off the bench. I think big reputation in NPL, and and that's the thing. Hume do have those options, much more depth coming from that bench, and I think Bingham might add something to this game because with his experience, his knowledge, and also his leadership, very important because Hume have faded a little bit, and I think that Bingham will probably push those players to come back, at least in terms of the tactical and the technical, and making sure that everyone's accountable, because that's what it's about, accountability on the pitch, and you need leaders like Bingham in order to get that from your own teammates.
Yep, one of the stalwarts of NPL Victoria football, Josh Bingham, has been the captain of Hume City for a couple of years now. He's scored many a crucial goal in his NPL career. Played his 100th game of NPL football a couple of weeks ago as well, so there's plenty of experience there. 43 goals in the league. And Domfey laps it down. Husal across on the left. Markovsky is trying to harangue him, and Laban came in as well as the second man for the Sharks. They try and kill the play from Husal.
You mentioned Markovsky there, good hustle there. Laban, this is where now, this part of the game, we saw probably his first foray attacking in this second half. We probably need some of those midfielders like Laban pushing much more forward for Port in order to create that opportunity, that equaliser, because at the moment, they're a little bit further back, and you've got to make that connection and push up on Hume.
It's O'Kane. O'Kane's goal is the one that separates these two teams at the moment. He scored the second for Hume to make it 2-0 at the time, before Alison Dratos struck just before half-time for Port Melbourne. Trzaskowski coming together in midfield with that man, Josh O'Kane. O'Kane's still down as well.
I was watching Berto Curta. They're making that run in explosive speed, but the ball was played back. It just showed what he can do, and maybe in terms of Hume needs to, important player in this second half, really take control of the match.
Hume City bench appealing for why that wasn't a yellow card. They've got 3. Port Melbourne none as it comes in, headed away. It's a goal line scramble here. Bingham just needs to punch it in, and the offside flag goes up. Playing right on the edge there, Port Melbourne, and getting the benefit from the assistant referee's flag. So what have we got left in this encounter? Still 20 minutes to go. I feel like we're in a holding pattern at the moment, and it might open up later in the half, particularly from Port Melbourne's side of things, who will no doubt push for an extra goal. It's kind of the whole point of the sport, I suppose, is to win. Here's Michael Weir. Laban. Trzaskowski. Two central midfielders from Port Melbourne being very closely followed by their counterparts at the moment, making it hard to create. Laban playing it laterally. Nuyet having to swivel around Usal. Now Bechvanovsky. Along the turf it goes. Ishak cuts it out. Kiradar across to O'Kane. And now Russell, who's got Bingham working for him on the inside. And played a blind pass into the 18-yard box. Laban is there at the double for Port Melbourne. He's doing his work defensively, but no one from Port Melbourne now really able to get that connection going into the final third or into the front half, really. They've been gradually over this second half just being pushed back slowly into their own half by Hume and their defensive shape.
Yeah, the wing-backs of Port Melbourne need to push up a little bit forward. We need to see more Besvanovsky, need to see more from Serra coming in and helping Brown, Alessandrados, and obviously Markovsky, but we're not seeing that at the moment, and that's where, that transition, that's where you create the opportunity. It's interesting, I was reading something this week about expected goals, and you mentioned how, football's a game where it's about the goals and winning, and it's an interesting concept, expected goals, because what it is what's expected from each team to score on these, and they come up with all these criteria. It's very, very interesting. However, what I did see is it's the hardest game to analyse, read data. Unlike, Moneyball, we talk about baseball, the games have got stoppages. Cricket, you can actually use data a little bit more. But with football, other than player data, we're talking about game data, it doesn't always, it's not the kind of game you can break down in very easily.
Challenge right on the edge of the box here. It's not going to be a penalty, although there were the calls. Yeah, I guess because football is, and most other sports, like as you said, baseball and cricket are all segmented, right? They're compartmentalised. You can break the game down into each tiny little fraction of each ball or each pitch or whatever the case may be. Whereas football here it's so continuous and there's no compartments. It's just two halves of football.
Yeah, that's exactly. And AFL's another sport that's very hard in terms of that data, game data scenario. So it's quite interesting. But we've seen a lot of these concepts, especially expected goals, come into football. And it's a very interesting concept, but it doesn't always read the game, as I like to say.
I was having a thought about expected goals, XG, during the week. I'll get to that in just a second. We'll follow this closely, though. Firstly, the free kick for Hume City. Kerda or Yildiz. It'll be Yildiz, and it's up and over, but it did take a touch off the wall, and so it's a corner for Hume City. You'd think right now a goal here for Hume with, what have we got left, about 20-odd, or just under 20 minutes. Well, 20-odd minutes including stoppage time would pretty much kill the contest. Halfway through the second half, a 3-1 lead. You'd think that'd be just about it. So these could be critical moments here for Hume. Kerda sends it in. Header right on the line. I reckon Donfay almost blocked that. It's going to come back here for Kerda. Trying to find an avenue and an opening. Rebounds down to Usal. Treshchevsky. And Kerda, it's a sloppy touch from him, but I reckon there was a chance there. I think it might have been Ashcroft to put his head onto that, and Donfay was at the front post and just about got himself in the way.
I mimicked that. He got in the way, and probably that was heading in, and I don't think Romich would have got there because it's certainly out of position, but Donfay right in the way there. But Kerda really creating something, but a bit of sloppiness. He's got that silky pass. He's got that ability. Just needs to, a little bit more focus there, and really he looks quite dangerous, and I think he's got license. That's the important thing. Under Marcholi, he's got license, takes the set pieces, ability to run, create, and that's what you've got. And any time he can change the game. And Port really got to concentrate, be accountable for players like that, because otherwise a third goal here, as you said, Jordan, that'd probably be the game.
Yellow card for, I think that was Daniel Serra, who got himself booked for Port Melbourne, the first for the Sharks tonight. Been a lot of set pieces for Hume. This one's a shallow entry. Serra heads it up. And then banged away by Yankolovsky. Some pretty fervent appeals for a handball from our left to the Hume City dugout. Down the left, Mehmet Usal. He stayed pretty wide tonight, hasn't been cutting in at all. He just stays to the touchline. Here's O'Kane. Now to Ford, who's been playing in some central areas, the right fullback. Russell's cross comes in, took a deflection, and spilt out of play by Romic. And the whistle goes Port Melbourne's way. Michael Domfey said to have fouled the goalkeeper.
Yeah, Sale started like a house on fire. Twice got around, but now he's not making his runs as he did in terms of the first half. We haven't really seen that much of him. Maybe he's been a bit more careful and not pushing up too much. But really now this is the part of the game where you can get behind. A lot of players are tired. Concentration's probably faded a little bit, and players like that who can get around and transition, get behind the channels, can cause the danger.
Just wonder if Marchioli's thinking of another change, if things are starting to stagnate here for Hume, who are getting themselves back on top, but they've got the likes of Mark Ochieng on the bench. Really the only sort of known attacking quantity, I suppose, Ochieng, who's more of a fullback anyway, but he's an attacking fullback. And then Obiora Eze, who is a 19-year-old attacking midfielder. He's the other option as well. And then the third of the remaining players is Michael Lazaris.
Yeah, Michael Lazaris, who made his debuts as a 17-year-old, I think it was last week.
Yes.
For Hume, coming through the Hume system, and but not here, but maybe, this is probably in relation, periodisation, they call it, loads. He's a young player just coming through, and he's got his opportunity, and he'll get another opportunity again.
That was neatly done by Ford. Here's Kerdar getting into the area, and there was just no one there at the end of his touch. Ishak retrieves it in the centre circle. Now Ashcroft starting to stride forward. He's got a few players hanging out the back. Domfey's out there. Being pushed away by Riyad Muyetz and wasn't able to turn back around. Port Melbourne have been firmly parked in their own half for the last sort of 5 to 10 minutes. Kerdar again charging through midfield. They need to get it out of here, Port Melbourne. They look like they start to, and then Trashchevsky plays it back into his own half. Laban. And back to Luka Romic. Will be a double change shortly for Hume City. Reverse pass into midfield for Trashchevsky. Might open things up if he can play it out to the right. He does. And now they're getting the wheels turning here, Port Melbourne. Sent into the edge of the box. Slight touch. Markovsky's strike is scooped up and over the crossbar. And they were finally able to get themselves out of their own half for the first time in a while, and it did produce a shot, Peter.
Markovsky will be disappointed with that. He couldn't keep the ball down. But yes, one of the first, Port in the last 10, 15, 20 minutes, Port had really not attacked. And just like that, quick transition, and Markovsky found himself an opportunity. Now they're making a change. I think with Port, it's really about just getting maybe breaking some of the channels, pushing a little bit further. They haven't got no high press at the moment, and that's why Hume have hemmed them in. And really, you need to push Hume back a little bit in order to get in those spaces. But it's interesting. I think Laban might be coming off. No, he's just Trachevsky. Sorry, but they probably need one or two more attacking options, and their wing backs pushing up because they're still in this game. And that's not because Hume haven't had enough end product. And it is about the end product. And in the second half, they haven't been able to put away Port. So Port really, are looking for 1-2 opportunities. That's enough.
So 2 changes for Hume City. Mark Ochieng and Obiora Eze, the 2 players we mentioned earlier, have come on. And Nikita Chichmil has come on as well for Port Melbourne. So Trashchevsky goes off, which means the captain's armband gets passed again. That was the little interchange with Laban. And it was Usal who came off for Hume City. And I actually missed the other one. It's Dennis Yildiz, who's come off on the opposite side of the field, which is why I didn't see it. So Yildiz off for Mark Ochieng.
Experienced player, Mark Ochieng. Good to have that on the bench, as you said. And that's what happens, I think, with a lot of players. They start as fullbacks, centre-backs, and then as you get experience, you move up the pitch. And when you've got someone like Ochieng, a lot of experience in the Australian leagues, Bingham as well, these kind of players.
Working our way to the crunch stages of this match. Into the final 10 minutes now as the game start to open up with these new players on the field, some refreshed legs. Is there a bit more energy in this game, which feels like it's becoming a little more comfortably Hume's. Port Melbourne just sort of sputtering along at the moment. Here's Ochieng. And Domfay around the corner for Obiora Eze. He's ran into Laban. Yankolovsky. One ball spun forward here by Port. Scooped away by Weir. Oh, it's a bad touch from Sarah. It's given straight back to Bingham, who's found Domfay and then gave it away. And Port just are at 6s and 7s at the back at the moment. Yankolovsky did well enough in the end to work the goal kick out of it, but it came off the initial error.
Yeah, I was going to actually say I like Yankolovsky's game today. Very hard at centre back. They've had a lot of injuries. Coming a younger player, obviously what's happened there, but no, he's shown a lot of steadiness, you know, and that's why maybe it's only 2-1 at the moment, because he has shown some leadership in that defensive line. It's the attacking that Port need to really ramp it up.
McCloskey infield to Sarah. Right idea, looking for Alison Dratos. Here's Aidan Brown. It's gone very quiet in the second half as Port Melbourne have been on the back foot. Muyet, he's given it away. It's another sloppy one from a centre-back, and he held the shirt of Obiora Eze as Romic came out to clear, but this is going to come back for the shirt pull. Riyad Muyet is being red-carded. I suspect that's because of last man back, Peter, and that is Port Melbourne down to 10 men.
Yeah, last man back. If you look at the angles where we're sitting, it was a little bit more difficult, but if you look from where the ref was right behind it, there was no other defender. Dukolovsky was too far away. Last defender, obvious shirt pull, and it's a big blow for Port Melbourne because really they're still in the game, and just to take that loss is going to be quite hard now. And we know that Hume have got quite a bit of firepower, which it's going to be hard to man mark in these last 8 minutes.
So Riyad Muyet comes from the field, which means there'll be another centre-back pairing change next week for Port Melbourne. Sent in by Hume, up and away by Yankolovsky. Here's Bingham, who gets rid of Brown. Brown keeps it in, prevents the corner. Ochieng. Gerda. Domfay. O'Kane. Yankolovsky nods it down towards Romic. They started this second half, Port Melbourne, with a lot of upside, having scored just before the halftime break. A lot of positivity out of the sheds. They just haven't been able to go the distance with Hume City here in the second half, who have been looked at the much fitter side as well.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell there's a little, fitness, explosiveness, all these factors play, especially in the last 5-10 minutes. And for Port now, it's quite hard with 10 men. And just before, you mentioned that they've been hemmed in. Markovsky, Alessandrados, not even over the halfway line, just stuck over here, and you're not even able to do a transition or a counter-attack based on that. So it's really worrying for Port at the moment, and whether they can get across the line. As a draw here in the last 5 minutes, it's not looking likely, but anything can happen.
Five minutes to go, plus stoppage time. Kerdar works it in field to O'Kane. Goes herring away towards Russell. O'Kane holds his line, sends it in to the front post. Domfe was there. O'Kane again. Here's Russell, opens up a yard and finishes the job. Joel Russell, who has worked tirelessly in this match tonight, gets his reward. It's a 3-1 lead for Hume City. Russell gets his second goal of the season, and Hume City will get 3 points tonight at JL Murphy Reserve. It felt like that goal was coming, and Russell, I think that is deserved rewards for his game tonight. Hume City, with just a few minutes remaining, Peter, 3-1 up.
Yeah, look, Russell and O'Kane, the two players that probably didn't expect, in particular the big names out there for Hume. You got Bingham, you got Domfe, and really that combination did very, very well. And as you said, Russell's been in this game, showed a lot of excitement, really worked hard, as has O'Kane, and that combo got that third goal, and well-deserved, and good for the players' confidence, because really you're controlling the game, but you're not converting. That's always worrying. But for the young player or player from Queensland who's come here to shake things up, fantastic goal.
So 3-1 leads for Hume City, and it is the goal that will kill the game off for the Sharks. Hume will get the 3 points, and they'll be back on the winners list for the first time since round number 5. So it's been over a month of football since they had their last win. Hume City started the season so well with points in 4 of their first 5 games, before they've been on a bit of a skid against some of the heavyweights in Heidelberg, Avondale and Oakley, suffering losses in the last month. But the month ahead, inclusive of today, sees games where they should be getting points, and they'll get all 3 tonight here at Hume City. Michael Domfe just playing for territory now as he continues his barnstorming run. Gets it into the area, but straight to Yankolovsky. And out of play it goes. Hume have won 7 of the last 10 encounters against Port Melbourne coming into tonight, and have scored 3 or more goals in 5 of those 10 matches. So you can now add 1 more to all of those columns. 6 of the last 11 matches have scored 3 or more against the Sharks. So they do like feasting against Port Melbourne.
Feasting against the Sharks, yes. But something about the Sharks today, their traditional, and it was part of the season launch, they got the really nice traditional jumper that they've really incorporated, and looks very nice. And I'm not here to talk about aesthetics either, but the Port Melbourne have really got that jumper really down pat. Looks a bit Bologna style, but it is from the traditional history, incorporating with a modern edge. And I thought I'd mention that because sometimes we overlook at how clubs try very hard to promote the heritage.
I do like the kit, actually. It's probably one of my favourites, I suppose, of the NPL. I don't have any allegiance to Port Melbourne or any team really, but I like the colour scheme and the design. I don't mind this Hume City away kit as well, actually. Here's Kerdar. I was going to say earlier about XG, right? We went off on a tangent. So XG is expected goals, as we know, and there's a formula behind it as to what the expected goals should be. It kind of, when you think about it, I get it. Here's Russell firstly, pushing his way into the area. Daniel Serra goes down. That'll be a goal kick. I mean, wouldn't expected goals just be the actual goal, like the actual score? Because that's, like, if you work it out, like, mathematically, and who should score and when they should score, isn't, I mean, the goals have gone in because that's when the teams were expected to score, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, look, or, expected goals from chances or something like that. I think that's where I get this algorithm or this data set from, and looking at the chances and calculating it and all these other factors. But you're right, I mean, we've seen all these new data sets and information. It's all fantastic, but it's, in a way, complicating the game, because it is a simple game, but it's also a lot of layers in our game. And I think sometimes to drill it down as expected goals, it's very hard to do, because a lot of the goals, and this is sometimes not always discussed, come from mistakes. Duels lost, possession lost, and certain other factors. So expected goals doesn't really fit with that.
Into stoppage time now, this second half. So just seeing away the last couple of minutes here at JL Murphy Reserve. Port Melbourne will go to 2-8, or 2-0-8, no draws this season, 2 wins, 8 losses. Hume, this will be their 4th win of the campaign. They'll go 4-2-4 on the table. Could they get one more? Here's Kerdar on the edge of the box. Nipped off him by Yankolovsky and sent away by Bechvanovsky. Up the other end, Alessandratos darts away. Ishak comes across. Ochieng. Kerdar, who's been good. I'll ask you after the whistle, Peter, who your man of the match is. So just to give you a heads up.
Very important now. That's part of our data that we need to keep. This man of the match, because that's a remit that's come, especially this year, and that must be on top of that straight after the game. I was looking at McCloskey before, and he was defending three, for the last 5-10 minutes. This is how deep the Port players have played. I know they're playing with 10 men, but there's no way they can get past the halfway line much.
No, it's just, the last, pretty much since the hour mark, it feels like, roughly, maybe the 70-minute mark, around that time of this second half. They haven't been able to get past halfway. Here they are, just about to. Long ball forward. Michael Weir will just chew up some more seconds here for Hume City. Harker, O'Kane and Russell, the goal scorers for Hume tonight. Alessandratos gave the Sharks some hope before half-time. It's been a very well-managed second half for Hume City.
This could be the momentum changer for Hume City. When you've got players like, as you just mentioned, Russell, O'Kane coming through and creating solutions, creating opportunities and converting, that sets you up very well. Because that's what it's about, depth, and it's about players who sometimes are not expected or not known, providing those goals or providing those assists to really make that charge towards the finals or the top 6.
Maybe one last chance for Hume. Here's Domfey. A tight angle and with plenty of Sharks defenders around him. Watching for a moment, looked like he was charging through. The final whistle here at JL Murphy Reserve, and Hume City secure all 3 points with a 3-1 effort tonight against Port Melbourne. They opened the scoring pretty early on. It was Robert Harker who scored the first goal of the game for Hume, after getting on the end of a ball from Joseph Ford down the right side of the field and putting it past and underneath Luka Romic. It was Josh O'Kane who scored the second goal off the back of a corner, squeezing through the traffic and getting it just past the outstretched hand of Luka Romic to make it 2-0 for Hume City. Thomas Alessandratos scored. Break of play emerging from down the left and getting it past Michael Weir for a 2-1 half-time score, which Hume City led in the main change. There was a red card for Riyad Muyet within the final 10 minutes, so he'll miss game time now, the centre-back for the Sharks, and that opened up some space for Joel Russell to score the final goal of the game, the cherry on top for Hume City to make it 3-1, tapping it in from close range through a couple of players' legs. 3-1 win for Hume City tonight here at JL Murphy Reserve. As Peter Paleologos, I'll ask you just firstly your thoughts on tonight's match.
Look, I thought Hume controlled the game quite well. Then we saw a little bit of punchy mobility there by Port. They got some young players, a bit of speed. Alessandratos, very good player, and got himself in good positions. And the momentum swung. However, Hume, when you've got a lot of experience, a lot of players at the back, and someone like Ashcroft, and then you're bringing on players like Bingham, Domfay, and then your X-factor players or your younger players, O'Kane and Russell, getting those goals really changed it. And Hume got that momentum. They got I think early in the season they were one of the favoured teams. They dropped off, as you said, with some of the powerhouses, but they have got the ability and they showcased that tonight. I know it's against Port Melbourne, but Melbourne will be a little bit worried because they don't have a deep bench and they obviously got a red card and injuries, but very interesting game. Hume in control. Port, there are some upsides, but just got to get a little bit more mobility up front and get those opportunities. We didn't actually see many chances today. It was mainly just the goals.
Yeah.
And in fact, we saw one that Domfay got in front of, blocked it for the player. But interesting night, good match, and great to be on board with you, Jordan.
Likewise. And quickly before we go, your man of the match.
I was going to go Alessandratos and Jakulovski, but then the scoreline changed. Berta Kurta, I'll let you make the call, but I did like Russell as well.
Yeah, I like. Yeah, it's between those two for me as well, Russell or Kurta. I'll go Kurta.
Okay.
Even though Russell got the goal, I like Kurta's game tonight for Hume. So he's our man of the match, Peter.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll hopefully do it again at some point through this season. 3-1 win tonight for Hume City tonight at JL Murphy Reserve. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back again for more action right across the weekend. This weekend, round number 10 of NPL Victoria Football, streaming on YouTube.